Hi there, and welcome to another TU-Automotive webinar. Today's webinar has been produced as a precursor to the 7th Annual Connected Car Insurance USA Conference and Exhibition. Today, we're going to be addressing the risk of distracted driving in a digital age. As we know, driver distraction, among other factors, has contributed to an alarming trend on US roads. Motor vehicles deaths totaled in excess of 40,000 last year, an increase in 6% from the year before. Here we are assess the technology that has impacted these figures for positive and negative reasons, and how to approach distracted driving from an insurance standpoint. I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's interactive webinar. David Niziolek, Director for Countrywide Underwriting, Strategy and Solutions with MetLife. Nick Arcolano, Senior Data Scientist with TrueMotion. Luke Harris, Director of Claims with Metromile. And Rob MacKethan, VP of Insurance with Zendrive. We will hear two presentations this morning before moving into poll questions, where you, the audience, get to cast your vote on some of the big questions in this field. Then we'll hand back to our experts to get some insights into the results of those poll questions. If we have time, we'll also be taking some questions from the audience, and you have the opportunity to pose those questions using the question function in the GoTo system. So please do be active in contributing to that. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker for this morning, presenting, which will be Nick Arcolano, Senior Data Scientist with TrueMotion. Nick, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. See me all right?
Perfect.
Okay. Yes. So hi, I'm Nick Arcolano. I'm a Senior Data Scientist at TrueMotion, and we make smartphone apps and data platforms for mobile telematics. And here at TrueMotion, why do we care so much about distraction? This is a big area of focus for us, and simply put, it's something that nearly everyone does, see a huge amount of it, and it has a huge impact on risk. And unlike many of the traditional risk factors we think about, say, how much you drive or what time of day you drive, it's something that drivers really can change about their habits. Now, we know that distraction is a major cause of auto accidents. What we see in our data is that well over 90% of drivers engage in some sort of smartphone-based distraction at some point. And overall, it accounts for about 20% of their total driving time. So it's a significant part of the time that we see drivers are distracted. And depending on the type of distraction, they're going to have a level of risk that is elevated, anywhere from 2x to 12x, depending on what they're doing, according to a lot of the research, naturalistic driving studies that have been done in this area. Our approach to addressing this problem is, really at a high level, it's, first we need to be able to measure distraction very reliably, and then once we have observations and data around distraction, understanding people's behavior and its connection to risk, and then that allows us to understand how we can change distraction. When it comes to measuring distraction, there's a lot of things that you need to be able to do this effectively. So as a smartphone application, the first thing you need to be able to do is collect high-fidelity data, to collect GPS data, data from the smartphone sensors, the accelerometers and gyroscopes. Using that data, you need to also be able to understand, is the person using the smartphone in a car at the time? Are they on a vehicle trip? And if they are in an automobile, are they the driver of that automobile, or are they just a passenger? Once you know that, then we focus on the distraction analysis, and we do what we call sensor-based distraction analysis. And what this means is, instead of relying on the smartphone to tell you what app someone is using, which is has privacy issues and also just isn't possible on some operating systems, and we focus on knowing from the sensors, how is the phone being handled? Does it look like someone is actively typing, texting, swiping? And all of these things, you know, the transit mode classification, driver identification, and distraction analysis require, you know, really advanced signal processing and machine learning methods to accomplish. And this is an area that we've invested heavily as a company. When we look at distraction, you know, the way that we like to break it down is, you know, you can think of phone calls, and then outside of phone calls, and, you know, non-call phone usage, app usage, texting, using Facebook. And our technology and using these approaches, we're able to get a finer view of people's handheld, you know, are you using the phone in a handheld fashion, or are you hands-free on a Bluetooth device or connected to your car? On the phone usage side, we like to break down more active kinds of use. So, you know, you're really actively typing, texting, swiping, so this would be indicative of email, social media, versus passive use where, you know, your phone is in a mount, you're using Waze, you're using Spotify, and all of these categories have different risk levels associated with them. Now, for the second step, understanding distraction, you know, once you have this data and you have it at a high level of fidelity, then you want to understand distraction habits across drivers. You know, how do populations of drivers behave? What is the relationship between their distraction habits and risk? And what is the relationship to other risk factors, things like hard braking? And these, you know, knowing all these things is what allows you to build the actuarial scoring models that let you score drivers and predict their level of risk. On the right, the diagram there shows this is what we see as a typical distribution of driver distraction scores for a population of drivers. So the green being, you know, higher score and lower risk, and the red being lower score or higher risk. And so you see this kind of exponential curve where, you know, a lot of people are, you know, get very high scores. They're very safe. They're using their phone 1 to 5% of their driving time, which is, you know, still dangerous. But what really drives risk is this big long tail of people who are using their smartphone 20, 50, 75% of their time that they're behind the wheel. And this is what we see again and again in driver populations. And then on to the third step of changing distraction. You know, this is where we're really passionate. And what we've seen is, you know, through real-world experiments, we've shown that there are interventions that can help drivers change their distraction habits. And so, you know, as an example, a simple intervention is, you know, giving people text or push notifications that tell you about how you're doing, you know, give you positive feedback on your last drive, things like that. And we've been able to show, you know, in one of our recent studies, 75% of drivers were able to reduce their distraction. And on average, those drivers reduced their distraction by 20%. You know, so that's it. You know, at TrueMotion here, our mission, our passion is to use smartphone technology and data science to understand distracted driving habits and ultimately to help people change them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now we'll move on from Nick and hand over to our next speaker and presenter today, which will be Rob MacKethan, VP of Insurance with Zendrive. So I think we're just going to get your slides up on the screen now, Rob, and we'll get you going.
Yes, hang on just a moment.
There we go. I think just about there. Perfect.
Great. Can you see the slides?
Looks good.
Good. Well, good morning. Thank you very much for including me. Very, very happy to be here talking about a topic that we're passionate about, distracted driving. Before we dive into some of the analysis that Zendrive has done recently, I'll give you a little bit of background information about who we are. We're a mission-driven company. We're focused on making the world's roads and drivers safer using data and analytics. We apply our technology platform in a number of contexts contexts, including consumer and commercial applications. That includes working with carriers to help them better understand risk and find new approaches to reduce risk. We also work with fleet owners, cities and municipalities, and transportation researchers. We believe we have one of the largest data sets measuring driving behavior. We're actually about to announce on Monday passing the 10 billion mile milestone. That is 10 billion miles of analyzed driving behavior data, and that comes from our user base of about 3 million monthly active drivers. So what do? We are a smartphone-based driver analytics platform. We use the sensors on smartphones to collect data and process that data to identify driving characteristics and particular indicators of risk. So some of the things you in the insurance space I'm sure are familiar with: aggressive acceleration events, heart braking events, excessive speeding, distracted driving. What goes into doing that, of course, is first identifying when a trip occurs, who's driving, and the various contextual elements. So one of the things that we do with this data is conduct studies of behavioral patterns. The amount of data we have allows us to get really granular in some of those studies. So, for example, we conducted a recent analysis identifying all the way down to the individual state level what distracted driving patterns look like. So first takeaway from this is that at the highest level, what we uncovered is that a very high percentage of drivers use their phones in a way that's distracting their driving activity at some point while they're driving. So huge percentage of the audience does this at least once while they're driving. It varies, interestingly, significantly by state. So this is actually a heat map showing the average percentage of phone use as a percentage of time during a typical trip. You can see, so the dark colored states are the ones where that rate is higher. And we also compared this. The stars indicate on this map states that have implemented some type of prohibition of phone use while you drive. And there doesn't appear to be a significant correlation or showing the efficacy of those regulations, interestingly. So there are states like Oregon, as an example, where there is a prohibition and there is a very low rate of distracted phone use. But conversely, if you look at Vermont, it's actually the highest single state in terms of distracted phone use, and they also have a similar prohibition. So getting a little more granular, we've actually been able to show evidence of the causal relationship between distracted driving and collisions. So one of the things that our platform does is measure collision events. And what we were able to show is that, in fact, heavier distracted phone users are more likely to be in a collision event. In this study, we looked at 3 cohorts: light, medium, and heavy users. The heavy users experience collisions at a significantly higher rate. In fact, that cohort, on average, spent 3 minutes or more on their phone during a typical trip. So, very high evidence of collision correlation there. Getting even more granular, if we take a look at the data on an individual trip level, what we're able to find is that the majority of drivers who were in a collision actually used, we were able to show that they were using their phone during that same trip in which the collision took place. So we've got enough data to be able to show this from a trip perspective. In fact, 60% of drivers who were in a collision were on their phone at some point during that trip. And then taking it one step further, we were able to show that 1 out of 5 collision events actually involved a driver being on their phone immediately before that collision event took place. So again, very strong signals of the causal relationship between distracted phone use and collision events. So one of the things we're focused on, similar to what Nick was saying, is not just measuring this risk, but reducing it. And so we have a scoring taxonomy that measures and tracks distracted driving as a separate score. So we have not just an overall safety score, but also a separate score. We call it FOCUS, that is an index of the distracted driving behavior. And we've been able to show that, in fact, that score does correlate with collision activity. So we focus on reducing the likelihood of a collision. We have both a feedback mechanism and a coaching approach to improving driver behavior. And one of the things we've been able to find is that when you take that approach, you're providing active feedback, providing information about driving behavior, actionable information that specifically indicates which behaviors are risky, you can in fact influence behavior. And we have actually had a lot of success in working with our clients to focus on distracted driving specifically, and have achieved on average a 59% reduction in distracted phone use as a result of those feedback and coaching programs. Andy, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that presentation. So now we're able to move into the second part of today's webinar. We'll be launching poll questions. So this is the opportunity for you, the live audience, to cast your vote on the multiple choice questions that we have for you today. And as you can see on the screens, whilst we just get this going, this is all as a precursor to the Connected Car Insurance USA 2017 conference and exhibition. This will be the 7th annual event. Pleased to say that we've got some big speakers coming to the event already. Those include the like of the CEO of Metromile, so a colleague of Luke Harris, who we're going to hear from later. And also the CEO of Root Insurance, who is a new player in this industry and a bit of a disruptor, as I'm sure many of our listeners are well aware of. So let's get moving with the first poll question for today's session. So this poll: how do we solve mobile phone related distracted driving? So here you'll see the answers that we've got today, and quite simply cast your vote. So do we believe it comes down to limiting connected car technology in the car through regulation, create more seamlessly integrated mobile solutions for the vehicle, understanding of why and how people use their phones in the vehicle, or could it be something else? So I think we are going through the audience, and we see that the audience is casting their votes, which is fantastic. We'll just give a few more moments for the other listeners to make their decision, and we'll shut that off in just a few moments. 3, 2, 1, and we can now see the results. So how do we solve mobile phone related distracted driving? It seems that the majority of the listening audience today believes that creating more seamlessly integrated mobile solutions within the vehicle is the way forward. So I'd now like to open up to one of our guest speakers, Luke Harris, who I just mentioned. Luke Harris is the claims director with Metromile. Luke, having seen these results, what's your take on those?
I'm not surprised with the opinion of the audience members. Looking at the questions, I think that understanding of how people are using their phones and creating a more seamless integrated approach are kind of combined there. We've already talked to a few folks today that have developed some great products to kind of help us understand how people are using their phones and also drive the behaviors to be safer on the roads. You know, as a claims person and as someone that's watching the rising frequency and severity trends across the industry, going along with a mobile phone usage and improvements in the technology, it's very concerning to me. You know, our goal at Metromile is to keep drivers safe, and of course, by doing that, it helps affect our bottom line. I don't think people are going to stop using their phones. We've already seen in one of the slides that regulation has a very limited correlation to people actually using their phones while driving. So I don't think the answer is regulation. I think the answer is making it easier and developing solutions that can help control and you know, influence the behaviors versus trying to control it through regulation.
Okay, fantastic. And I'd like to just now hand over to our other guest speaker for today, David Niziolek, Director for Countrywide Underwriting Strategy and Solutions with MetLife. David, your take on the results of that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think number two really speaks to the notion of are drivers going to change their behaviors? And the take that I have right now is I'm not convinced many drivers will. And if they're going to continue to use their phones and remain distracted in vehicle, why not look to make it more safe through exactly what bullet 2 is suggesting. When it comes to bullet 3, we certainly have a lot to learn about why and how people are using their phones. Working with a company like TrueMotion, we're starting to gain some insights there now. But really, it's about, I think, a balance of correcting behavior and also understanding that not everyone is going to do that. And in those cases, how do you make those distractions safer? I know that might seem like an oxymoron, but I think it's some of the realities that we have to face.
Sure. Okay. Now I'll hand over to Rob. Rob, there's 11% that are voting other there. Any sort of inclination as to what those other solutions might be?
Well, I would say first off, I agree with the first point that regulation the efficacy of regulation is not proven at this point. You know, our thesis is enforcement of those regulations is a challenge, but we see it in our data that the states who have implemented regulatory prohibitions of distracted phone use really have not moved the needle on actual usage. So. I think our view is really it's all about educating the driver and providing the driver with feedback on how they can improve.
Fantastic. And Nick, if you'd like to make a comment of your own.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page here. I was, not surprised and pleased to see the results of the poll come out this way. I mean, I think. It's clear from my slides, we are very much in the understanding human behavior side of things. One of the ways that I kind of break this down is, we really like behavioral economics, and for anyone who's heard of the kind of system 1 versus system 2, thinking fast and slow kind of paradigm. There's the, methodical, logical, I intend to be distracted, I know I need to make a call, I'm doing this on purpose, and that's where these seamlessly integrated mobile solutions have an impact. But then there's the fast, impulsive, my phone buzzes and I just instinctively pick it up because I carry this thing around and respond to it all day. And that level of addiction, that's what we find we can really change. People aren't choosing consciously to be distracted, they've just been conditioned to be distracted, and that's what through behavior change you can learn to do. So I agree that 2 and 3 really work together.
Okay, fantastic. So I'd like to move now on to the second poll question that we have for today. We'll just get that loaded up for you. So those of you who are listening, you can hear from companies such as Zendrive, Metromile, MetLife, and TrueMotion. That's at Connected Car Insurance USA 2017. We're going to be launching an agenda and a brochure with the full lineup of speakers in just a couple of weeks' time. So please look out for that. Yes, let's move on to the second poll question for today. So again, live audience, please do cast your votes. How do we see automotive tech such as ADAS, advanced driving assistance systems, affecting the insurance industry? And here we have again a multiple choice answer, or question I should say. So option A, diminished situational awareness and reliance of technology. Substantial reduction of traffic accidents and claims payouts. Do we think there's going to be a sharp increase in obsolescence and risk within vehicles without ADAS? And then for those who are not quite sure, possibly sitting on the fence, there is an option to vote other. We'll just give that a few more moments to tick over. We've got a very strong amount of insurers listening into today's webinar, so it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on this. Please do vote. All votes are anonymous, and we'll just close that off in a few more moments. I'd say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and here we go. The answers are in. So how do we see automotive tech such as ADAS affecting the insurance industry? Quite close, but the winner is a substantial reduction of traffic accidents and claims payout. So I'm just going to open this up again to our guest speakers for today, and we'll start with David. David from MetLife, what's your take on these results?
Yeah, I don't look at 1 and 2 as being mutually exclusive here. I mean, the less we have to focus on the road because our cars are becoming smarter, the less we will be aware. And the more reliance on the tech, and then you have the other issue of, the average age of the car on the road being 11 years. It's not like all cars are connected and have the same technology. So I think that is certainly a big issue. As it pertains to cost and claims, to date we're not really seeing a reduction in severities. I mean, I think everyone is aware about the increase in deaths from car accidents is on the rise, which is counterintuitive when you think about the increased safety features of these vehicles on the road. So I think the two kind of work hand in hand there, and it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll just hand it over to Luke, the man in the claims department. What do you make of these results, Luke?
Yeah, I'm pressed to find anything that David didn't already mention. I agree completely with the commentary, and especially that 1 and 2 are not mutually exclusive. I think as we look over the next decade, we're not going to see the reduction that we hope to see in the frequency or the severity by measure of claim payout that we'd like to see. I think David mentioned the statistic about 11 years on average age of the vehicle. So before we see that 50% split of vehicles with ADAS technologies and semi-autonomous technologies, we're not really going to realize the benefit. So I do think long-term we're going to see the reduction in accidents and payouts, but I'd say we're at least a decade away from that. So we need to focus on the incremental steps and how we control both the frequency and severity, or at least try to drive behaviors that help with that. Until we get to that fully autonomous state.
Okay, fantastic. I'll just hand over to Nick Arcolano, TrueMotion. Nick, collecting lots of data on vehicle behavior. How do you see ADAS affecting driver behavior, I should say, in the years coming?
Yeah, this is great. I love this question, and I absolutely agree that these first two are linked, and there's going to be kind of a balance and interaction between these. And really, that's from our interest at TrueMotion, it's the human behavior part. These are systems that people can use to make themselves safer. How effectively do they coordinate responsibility of controlling the vehicle with these systems? So, our interest is very much understanding from a human behavior side, are you using these systems effectively? Are they reducing your risk, or Are you interacting with them in a way that, you know, doesn't change or maybe even increases your risk?
Okay, fantastic. And then last but not least, Rob from Zendrive. Anything to add? Any other points that you'd like to bring up that the other guys haven't thought of so far?
Yeah, so I'll echo the point that really comes down to being all about human behavior. Until we get to the point where you've got, you know, level 4 autonomous technology being a reality and a significant portion of the driving behavior. It's all about the human in the equation, and our big focus is on identifying ways to improve the human piece of the equation.
Okay, fantastic. So, ladies and gents, we'll move on to our final poll for today. And again, just whilst we get that loaded, just a reminder for those who are interested in connected car and insurance, all the trends for ADAS related technology, for driver behavior. This really is the event for insurance telematics professionals. This is the 7th annual event held in Chicago. Please get in touch if you'd like to know more. Otherwise, stay tuned to the website and request your brochure when it goes live in a couple of weeks. So here we have the final poll. Mass adoption of connected car services cannot happen without, and here we have the following solutions. Full integration of the automakers into the UBI system, the usage-based insurance ecosystem. Standardization of UBI data from varied sources, so whether it's OBD dongle, smartphone, or otherwise. A business model that isn't dependent on premium discounts. And finally, a portfolio of value-added services. And then for those, again, who are not quite sure, you have the option of selecting other. We're just going to let that tick over for a few more moments whilst we get the full audience making their decisions and their vote. I should note that for the webinar today, the recording will be sent around to those who are listening. I've seen a few questions coming in, but do not worry, it will be sent around to those who are listening. I think we've just about had enough time for the audience to cast their votes, and I think we can close that off now. So here we go. The answers are in. Mass adoption of connected car services cannot happen without standardization of UBI data from varied sources. So we've got a couple of experts on driver behavior and working with varied UBI data sources. I'd like to ask, let's go in slightly different order. So let's start with Rob. Rob, what do you make of those results there?
Yeah, interesting to see. I think certainly focus on standardization of the data set is important. I think there's been some coalescence around some standard metrics that people measure their indicators of risk. But you know, we work with actually a number of the developers of autonomous vehicle technology right now, and there's a clamor for information, credible, sizable data troves of information about human driver behavior, so that the developers of the self-driving vehicles can understand, number one, the context that those vehicles are going to be operating in, and number two, how to anticipate what the humans are going to be doing. I think it's all about collecting enough data to make that viable, that approach viable.
Okay, fantastic. Luke, Metromile have a very distinct way of collecting data, and that seems to be expanding. What's your take on the results for this particular question?
Sorry about that. I was having issues with my mute button here. So my favorite one here is, of course, the business model that isn't dependent on premium discounts, since that's exactly what Metromile does. But in all seriousness, I really think that all of the above would be my answer. You know, I think that the adoption by automakers and the standardization of the data collection are extremely important to have mass adoption of connected car services, but also, and it's already being demonstrated today, there's room in this in the market from an insurance perspective and value-added services perspective for all kinds of new entrants. So I'd say, yeah, to sit on the fence, all of the above would be my answer on this one for mass adoption.
Okay, fantastic. David, an insurance company working closely with collecting driver behavior. What's your take on the answers below?
Yeah, I'm with Luke on this. I think, regarding bullet one, I'm more curious to see how quickly this is going to happen. I believe we're on an accelerated path here. You see more and more press releases coming out with carriers partnering with OEMs. So that, when it comes to bullet number one, I think it's going to happen sooner than later, and that also looks to disrupt the other telematics platforms or UBI platforms we're using today. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Regarding bullet two, will drivability score become the next credit score? So will we have a TransUnion, Equifax? Is that the Verisk, Wills, Towers, Watson, and Lexus of tomorrow regarding drivability? Will carriers be willing to contribute their drivability scores, proprietary scores, and more importantly, how are we going to decipher what that even means? A 400 for this company and a 600 for that company mean two totally different things. So very interesting to see in terms of standardization there. And then the last thing I'll add is I think bullets 3 and 4 are kind of combined again. And there, how many insurance apps or apps at all is a customer willing to have on their phone? And we're not just competing with the other top carriers in the marketplace. We're competing with insurtech companies like Metromile on the phone here today, and as well as other apps like Waze, Yelp, and the weather company. And so I think one of the key things that we need to consider is not necessarily compete with this stuff, but how do you partner, especially when it comes to that insurtech marketplace. So.
Fantastic. Then just finally, I'll let Nick just cast your opinion on those results.
Hi. Yeah, I guess it doesn't make for great television when we all agree, but yeah, I think I'm very much in the same place. The first two, I mean, those things to some extent are happening and will happen to a greater or lesser degree. I'm particularly interested in the third and fourth ones. The model where you just give away money, isn't a sustainable one for making driving safer for everyone, either for the consumer or for the insurer. Ultimately, people, they don't deeply integrate a technology into their lives. If you look at the things we use every day, it's not because we were paid a rebate to use them. It's because that technology solves a problem for you. It provides daily value. That's why you use something every day. And so that's where the value-added services come in. These telematics connected car need to solve real problems, and just giving away money won't do that.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you very much. Those are the poll questions. Those poll questions will be collated and again sent around to the listening audience. I'd just like to move into the final part of today's webinar, where we can take some live questions from the listening audience. So one of the questions that has been brought forward is that it sounded like many of these products are apps on the phone tracking driver behavior on the phone. Is that a bit counterintuitive? So I should really pose this to Nick, I suppose, if you'd like to take the lead on this one. Is measuring driver behavior, distracted driving, even on the phone, counterintuitive?
I don't know about counterintuitive. It's definitely challenging. As I mentioned, there's a huge amount of data science and technology that goes into being able to do this just with a smartphone alone. If you can do that, though, what it gets you is, the irony is that the thing that causes the distraction is also the thing that allows you to understand a person's level of distraction in a way that you can't with traditional telematics dongles that are just plugging into the vehicle but don't have a view into what that person is doing with for a lot of us, the most important device in our lives.
Sure. And Rob, what do you make of that question? Do you have a different stance? I'm assuming not.
So I echo the thought that it's an incredibly challenging data science problem. It requires a massive amount of data, requires kind of a really clever approach to developing algorithms that discern meaning from the kind of noisy data that comes off a smartphone sensor array. But ultimately, the tool that is causing the distraction, the smartphone, if you're not using that to measure driver behavior, then you're not going to be able to detect that distraction. So we view it as a significant advantage in a smartphone-based approach to solving the challenges of improving driving behavior.
Thank you. So one of the questions that's also come in is that exactly that sort of data science problem when you're looking to collect data on the driver as opposed to the passenger, how that's working. Now, Luke, Metromile have launched an app, I believe, that's measuring driver behavior. Are you finding the same problems? How much of a technical problem are you seeing with the science behind this in measuring driver data and nothing else?
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest challenge, which was also mentioned by Nick and Rob, is just the data, the cost of the data, how quickly you need to sample the data, and how much data that you need. And it does require us to get creative in what we measure and how. At Metromile, we're very much tied to the OBD2 dongle, and that's because of the product that we offer. From our perspective, it gives us a much more robust and accurate insight into the driver and the vehicle's behavior, and because we price per mile driven, it's just a better option for us. But I am very much interested in the developments that are being made by companies like TrueMotion and Zendrive on the mobile app-based products.
Sure. Now, David, you've partnered with TrueMotion. How do you see sort of the use of driver score and the mobiles particularly sort of going forward?
Well, for starters, trust in the partnership. They are the tech experts, and we trust them. But the important thing with all this stuff is we are looking at this as a learning moment. If anyone thinks they have it all figured out, I would be absolutely shocked. Maybe one or two in the marketplace do, but we're looking at this as a learning experience, and looking to see how this plays out. I mean, strictly from a customer experience, and we've run into other challenges with how do you rate per vehicle, and now you have per driver, right? Because the phone is attached to a driver versus the traditional modes of rating insurance is on a vehicle level. So we've had a lot of interesting conversations here around that. But it's really being laser focused on the data and staying on top of it and reacting to what we're learning as quickly as possible.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's 45 minutes, folks. I think I'm going to wrap it up there and just say another big thank you to all of our speakers today, Nick, Rob, Luke, and David, representatives of TrueMotion, Zendrive, Metromile, and MetLife. This has been a webinar, as I said, to address the risk of distracted driving in the digital age as a precursor to the Connected Car Insurance USA 2017 event. Thank you very much for joining us today. Once again, the recordings will be sent around to everyone who's registered and listening in, and I'll leave you there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.